The students' bodies were scattered lifeless across the floor. The ones behind this massacre were orcs' natural-born predators, bred to hunt. Though they lacked refined intelligence, they far outmatched humans when it came to tracking and taking down prey. These brutal warriors would get riled up by the scent of fresh blood and exposed flesh, but for now, they had to restrain their killer instincts and focus on the mission. Hunting orcs could hold their breath for days in complete darkness, guided by a sharpened sixth sense that more than made up for their lack of sight. One of the orcs, just out of the portal, sniffed the air and grumbled in a deep voice, "Plenty of prey." Above, below, everywhere, his eyes scanned the building's structure. This place built like a fortress. But it doesn't matter, the hunt begins now. Bring our brothers, the savagery in his voice was unmistakable, hungry for blood. Once the humans were wiped out and the castle taken, the real slaughter would begin. He cracked his knuckles and growled, "I'll start with the ones on that side." With a savage motion, the orc burst through a door. At the end of the hallway, a group of students entered his line of sight. The kids barely had time to react, the attack had begun. Meanwhile, in front of Sung Jin Woo's focused eyes, a colossal portal hovered in the air. He was preparing to face the challenge alongside the Night Guild. The portal's size was intimidating, just like the guild's organization. It resembled a small army, complete with designated teams for offense, mining, and cleanup. The assault squad included 13 rank A hunters and another 20 rank B hunters, a solid force even by Jin Woo's standards. It was clear the Night Guild had the highest concentration of elite hunters in the country. Some of the hunters approached him, excited to be near a living legend. They had watched the Jeju Island raid broadcast. "How do you control those black soldiers? Are you leading the team today?" Before he could answer, a woman's voice cut through the chatter. "You're making a big deal out of an S-rank hunter." It was Young Yirim, and a rank healer and frontline medical officer. Her sharp gaze locked onto Jin Woo as she added, "The raid leader and the main healer need to be in sync." Soon raised an eyebrow, puzzled. "Didn't Young Yu inform you guys?" That's when Guildmaster Young-soo stepped forward and firmly announced, "I'll be leading this raid." The mood among the hunters shifted. Some clearly didn't agree with the decision, but Young-soo explained, "Jin Ho will handle the rear guard. He'll ensure everyone's safety." That sparked a few uncomfortable murmurs. "You saying we need protection?" One of the hunters snapped, visibly offended. "You think the best from the Night Guild need a babysitter?" It was a rookie, newly added to the guild, his arrogance bigger than his experience. Young-soo just sighed and replied calmly, "Some members are." A bit hot-headed, he said, glancing briefly at Jin Woo, "I hope you're not offended." "It's just how they are." Sung smirked quietly, confidence they've got plenty of it. With everything cleared up, it was time to move out. The raid was about to begin. Somewhere else in the city, at the Emergency Response Center of the Hunter Association, an urgent call broke the routine. "Hello, the monsters, they're at the school." The operator frowned, trying to make sense of it. "A dungeon break, yes. They killed my friend right in front of me." The girl's voice trembled. She was crying uncontrollably, covered in blood. "Where are you now?" "In the bathroom. I'm hiding here." "Can you estimate how many monsters are on site?" I don't know. People are screaming. I'm going to die, aren't I?" The operator narrowed her eyes, trying to stay calm. "Listen carefully. Hunters have already been dispatched. They won't stop until they find you. Please hang in there, you're going to make it." "But the monsters, what do they look like? Can you describe them?" The girl swallowed hard, struggling to find the words. Their bodies looked human, but their faces, they were horrible. Their skin, green. The operator's eyes widened. "Orcs, I think so." At that very moment, the worst happened. Heavy footsteps began echoing in the bathroom. The door creaked slightly as a massive figure blocked the light. An orc appeared, wielding an axe still dripping with blood. "No," the operator screamed, clutching the phone tightly. "Get out now, they can smell fear." But it was too late. The phone slipped from the girl's hands and hit the floor with a dull, final thud. The massacre was far from over. The school's hallways had turned into a slaughterhouse. Students were running everywhere, desperate to escape the nightmare. Every corner seemed to hide a new terror. Screams mixed with the heavy steps of the monsters, and the walls were smeared with blood. Some students managed to flee through the main entrance, but many of their classmates weren't so lucky. Their only hope was that the hunters would arrive in time, but the orcs weren't slowing down, they were still ravenous. Half the prey escaped, one muttered, licking his sharp teeth. But there's still plenty of meat left. Another, with a cruel look, snarled, seal all the exits. Don't let anyone else get away. Go up, kill them all. Inside one of the classrooms, a group of students huddled together, piling desks and chairs against the door in a desperate attempt to build a barricade. But it was useless. With a devastating blow, the door and furniture shattered like paper. One of the students, consumed by panic, bolted toward the other exit. As he opened it, he froze. Another orc was waiting right there. With a single swing, the creature demolished the doorway and raised its axe without hesitation. No, the impact echoed through the room with a harsh, final thud. In the middle of the chaos, one of the orcs muttered, "There's someone here." Someone powerful. He narrowed his eyes, trying to focus on the strange sensation. We need to eliminate that one first. In the corner of the classroom, a group of students trembled with fear. Among them were two girls who stood out, Jinna, Sung Jin Woo's younger sister, and her friend Han Song-yi, a low-ranked hunter. Jinna's heart pounded in her chest, consumed by a single thought. "Brother," she silently called out to Sung Jin Woo, longing for his presence. That's when Han Song-yi took a deep breath and gathered every ounce of courage she had left. Even with trembling legs and fear in her chest, she stepped forward. I have to fight. I can't just wait here." One of the orcs looked at her and frowned. "Is that the hunter?" The other shook his head, sensing something deeper. "No. The power I felt is coming from the girl next to her." He sniffed the air carefully. "It's her scent. Die." In an instant, the orc charged, raising his axe for a killing blow aimed at Jinna. Frozen in fear, the girl clung to Song-yi and shut her eyes, bracing for the pain. But it never came. Hesitantly, she opened them and saw something she would never forget. A monstrous, shadowy hand gripped the orc's arm tightly. It was one of her brother's shadows. The dark figure was, in fact, one of the elite orcs that Sung Jin Woo had conquered to join his shadow army. Meanwhile, inside the dungeon, the hunters of the Night Guild came face to face with a towering creature, a terrifying, two-headed ogre. "Heads up," one of the hunters warned. The beast raised its axe with both hands and slammed it down with brutal force. Guildmaster Yong-soo channeled his magical energy and raised a shield to protect the group. Boom! The impact made the ground quake, but the barrier held. "Yuntae," Yong-soo shouted, his right-hand man. Yuntae didn't hesitate. With sword and shield in hand, he ran up the enemy's weapon, used it as a ramp, and launched himself toward the beast's head. With surgical precision, he drove his blade into one of the creature's eyes, triggering a howl of pain. "Now, Nona, Ryung," he commanded. Hunter Nona, wielding a massive axe, and the swordsman Ryung charged forward, unleashing furious blows. The ogre screamed in agony as its arms were torn apart. Taking advantage of the opening, the mages focused their energy and fired off devastating spells of fire and lightning, scorching the creature till it finally collapsed. A heavy silence fell over the battlefield. Yong-soo wiped the sweat from his brow, scanning the surroundings. "This dungeon's going to be more trouble than I thought." Then he turned to Sung Jin Woo. "Do you know what those two-headed ogres are called?" Jin Woo nodded firmly. "Death Guardians." Yong-soo took a deep breath, thinking. Facing monsters like this as dungeon bosses is already tough, but when they appear right at the entrance, it means we're up against an undead army. And then they saw it. A horde of zombies was marching toward them. Ancient warriors, reanimated to fight once more. Yong-tae's eyes widened in disbelief. This is insane. What do we do? But then something unexpected happened. The zombies stopped, and to everyone's surprise, began to retreat. The hunters exchanged confused looks. What's going on? They should be attacking us. Are they afraid? Sung Jin Woo narrowed his eyes. The undead were moving away from him. A chill ran down his spine. Something was definitely off. Wasting no time, he turned to Young-soo. I have to go, now. The guildmaster was taken aback. What now? If you leave, we could be exposed. Jinwoo raised his hand, and a shadow silently emerged from the ground. He'll take my place. The shadowy creature bowed before him, awaiting orders. Without hesitation, Jinwoo vanished into the shadows. Moments later, a dark aura began to form around him. Before the stunned eyes of the hunters, a massive figure materialized. Biberu, the hunters instinctively took a step back. Isn't that the ant from Jeju Island? With a calm look, Sung Jin Woo answered, since you recognized him, I don't need to explain. He's in charge now. The guild members exchanged tense glances. The thought of continuing the raid alongside that monster made them uneasy. Beru, the former Ant King, gave a slight bow to his master. My king, what would you have me do with those who are not human? Jinwoo looked him straight in the eyes. Do as you please. Beru then raised his head and let out a thunderous roar. The sound echoed through the dungeon, filling the space with an overwhelming aura of dominance. The hunter swallowed hard, frozen in place by the terrifying energy. And as if that weren't enough, Sung Jin Woo raised his hand again. 20 ant soldiers emerged from his shadows, marching silently. That should be enough, he murmured. Young-soo, still uneasy, frowned. Wait, you're seriously leaving us here with those things loose? Yoon Yirim, just as concerned, crossed her arms. How can we trust them? Jinwoo's gaze turned sharp. If you'd rather, I can take my soldiers with me, but they're better than nothing. Faced with the unspoken threat, no hunter dared to argue. They accepted the protection. Only 1 hour and 40 minutes remained until Sung Jin Woo could use Shadow Exchange again. He had to move fast. A bad feeling churned in his chest as he rushed toward the portal's exit. His senses were completely focused on the feedback from the shadows he had left with his sister. Something was wrong. Suddenly, more undead appeared in front of him, blocking the way. Jinwoo didn't waste a second. With a swift motion, black blades formed in his hands. Get out of my way. But before he could strike, the creatures knelt. Zombies that had been tools of death now bowed before him like loyal subjects. Jinwoo narrowed his eyes. Is this happening because I'm the Shadow Monarch? There was no time to ponder. Raising his hand, he summoned Kaizul. From the shadows, a massive black dragon emerged, its wings beating with earth-shaking power. The hunters near the portal's exit saw only the silhouette of Sung Jin Woo shooting into the sky like lightning. Riding Kaizul, he shouted, urgency bursting from his voice. Take me to my sister, now! Kaizul soared into the skies, tearing through the air toward the looming danger. Meanwhile, back at the school, the Shadow High Orc stood guard over Jin Woo's younger sister. With overwhelming strength, the creatures tore through the enemy orcs like they were nothing but bugs. The students watched, confused and in total shock, unable to process what they were seeing. Those red orcs were known for their brutal power, yet they were being wiped out effortlessly. One of the elite Shadow Orcs took out 2 enemies at once with a single, lightning-fast move, leaving the students even more stunned. Why were these terrifying beasts protecting them? What was the reason behind this unexpected defense? Sensing her brother's presence drawing near, Jina tried to run toward him. But one of the Shadow Orcs stretched out its arm in front of her, blocking her path. Just ahead, more enemy orcs were gathering, gearing up for another attack. And at the center of the invasion, sitting atop a grotesque throne of bone and steel, was the real commander behind it all. With a menacing stare and a deep voice, he declared, the last barrier has fallen. It was Grokter, leader of the Red Blade tribe. A cruel grin spread across his face. Now, nothing stands in our way. One of his underlings rushed over, out of breath, bringing urgent news. Lord Grokter, the High Orcs, they're fighting alongside the humans. Grokter frowned, not believing his ears. How many? Only 3? The orc leader's face twisted with rage. 3? Just 3 High Orcs are tearing through my warriors? This is disgraceful. He shot up from his throne, grabbed his massive blade, and roared, "Take me to them." It's time for a real massacre. Meanwhile, in the ranked dungeon, the Shadow Ants marched forward without mercy, annihilating everything in their path. But the Knights Guild hunters were getting nervous. The Ants, allies of Jin Woo, were both reassuring and terrifying. If they were mistaken for enemies, there'd be no chance of survival. Yoon Tae-sik approached Choi Jong-in, the guild's leader, clearly uneasy. "Master, what should we do?" Jong-in hesitated. Abandoning the dungeon wasn't an option, not with reporters waiting outside for any slip-up. How could they explain retreating out of fear of Sung Jin Woo's summons still? Park Jong-soo, the operations vice leader, looked terrified. Facing Beru, he could barely stop himself from shaking. Sweating cold, he muttered, his voice trembling, "Are you going to fight with us?" Before he could even get an answer, Beru vanished. His speed was unreal, far beyond what human eyes could track. In the next instant, he reappeared. Jong-soo didn't even have time to react. Stunned, his knees buckled and he collapsed to the floor. Then Beru tossed something at his feet and continued forward, marching with the Shadow Ants without even looking back. Still in shock, Jong-soo struggled to process what had just happened. His teammates rushed over, worried. "Master, are you okay? What happened? Should we follow those things?" Jong-soo took a deep breath, trying to pull himself together. "Yeah, it's all under control. We'll be fine." He pointed at the object on the ground. "But first, take a look at this." Everyone looked down and their jaws dropped. Lying at Jong-soo's feet was the severed head of a Death Knight, one of the dungeon's most feared monsters. Beru had taken it out in the blink of an eye. The guild leader cracked a surprised smile, impressed by the raw power he'd just witnessed. "They're that strong?" Then a thought hit him like a bolt of lightning, and a greedy spark lit up in the eyes of a few hunters. "Do you have any idea how much a mana crystal from a high-ranking demon is worth?" Silence. After a brief pause, the guild hunters exchanged quick glances. Without saying a word, they all moved out at once. "Let's go, boss. If you don't hustle, you're gonna get left behind." Back at the school, the Shadow Orcs kept holding their ground, fighting off waves of enemies to protect Jinna. Grokter finally arrived on the battlefield and went straight for the High Orcs. With one brutal strike, he managed to slice off the arm of the strongest among them. Pleased, he smirked arrogantly and declared, "Each tattoo on my body marks of victory. An enemy I killed with my own hands." His eyes burned with savage intensity. "I'm sure you've taken down some of mine too, but you'll never reach my level." He raised his blade again and charged with fury. "Come on, entertain me, Shadow Orcs." Just as he was about to land the killing blow, his blade was blocked. Another Shadow High Orc had stepped in just in time. Grokter's eyes widened. "He stopped my blade?" Even so, he didn't look impressed. "Doesn't matter. It changes nothing." With a merciless swing, Grokter sliced the orc in half. The High Orc's body collapsed in pieces, a clean victory, or so he thought. Moments later, right before his eyes, the mangled body began to regenerate. Grokter scowled, suspicious. "What the hell is this? Dark magic?" It didn't matter how many times he killed them. They always came back. He could cut them down 100 times, and they'd still rise again. As Grokter struggled to make sense of the madness around him, an obsessive voice began echoing inside his mind, pounding relentlessly, "Kill the humans, kill the humans, kill the humans." The command grew louder with each second. Grokter knew what he had to do. If those creatures kept coming back, there was only one explanation: someone was keeping them alive. If he eliminated the summoner, it would all be over. His eyes locked onto Jin-ah. "So it's you," convinced she was the one behind it. He shouted, "Capture the human." Immediately, the shadow orcs closed in around her, forming a protective wall. But Grokter had already spotted their weakness. During regeneration, they're vulnerable. Keep attacking until you surround the girl. The enemy orcs swarmed forward like a hive. The clash of steel rang through the air. Even though the shadow warriors were stronger, they were being overwhelmed by the sheer numbers. Han Song-yi, seeing the situation spiraling out of control, yelled, "Jin-ah, we have to get out of here now." But before they could move, Grokter made his move. With a sudden leap, he grabbed Jin-ah's face with his monstrous hand. He lifted her into the air like she weighed nothing. "It's you," he muttered, sensing the magical energy radiating from her. "I can feel the trace of the spell." His eyes blazed with fury. Die, he began to squeeze, ready to crush her skull. But then, something changed. A cold chill ran down his spine. An enormous presence was approaching from the sky, something beyond any threat he'd ever known. Grokter started to tremble. His fingers loosened involuntarily, and he dropped Jin-ah, that presence. It was getting closer, closer. Terror rooted itself deep inside his body. The power was so overwhelming, he couldn't even form words. Finally, eyes wide with fear, he whispered, "As something's coming, something terrifying." Panic overtook his voice. "Our retreat, now!" But before his soldiers could react, a massive explosion ripped through the fortress. Grokter was hurled like a ragdoll, slamming into the stone wall with bone-crushing force. Jin-ah, still shaken from the impact, gasped for air when a gentle hand touched her head. A calm, commanding voice echoed with quiet strength, "You're safe now." In the distance, Grokter, lying battered on the ground, slowly lifted his gaze and froze at the sight before him. The figure standing there wasn't just a man. He hadn't just torn a massive hole in the fortress like it was paper. His presence filled the air like a force of nature. Riding atop the mighty Kaisel, Lord of the Wyverns, was Sung Jin Woo. The shadows around him swirled violently, as if a living storm surrounded his body. His aura was suffocating, and his eyes piercing and relentless, locked straight onto Grokter. Trying to pull himself together, the leader of the Red Blade tribe shouted with pride, "I am Grokter, chief of the Red Blade tribe." But before he could finish his arrogant introduction, Jinwoo raised his finger, pointed straight at him, and coldly cut him off. "Shut up." Those words carried more than contempt, they were a silent sentence. Grokter felt the fear sink deep into his gut. Ignoring the orc, Jinwoo turned to his sister. Jin-ah, still shaking, couldn't hold back her tears. Her brother wrapped her in a tight, protective embrace. "It's over now." He gently stroked her hair, his voice lowering to a guilt-ridden whisper. "I'm sorry I took so long." After comforting her, Jinwoo stepped back slightly and looked at her classmates. "Are you all okay?" They nodded quickly, still wide-eyed at what they were witnessing. Then his gaze shifted to Han Song-yi, visibly concerned. "And you, are you safe?" Still frightened, Song-yi managed to respond, her voice faint. "Why, yeah. I'm fine." That's when Jinwoo's eyes narrowed. He saw it. His sister's face was marked, reddened, and swollen. The result of Grokter's brutality. A silent, burning rage began rising in his chest. Without saying a word, he raised his hand and summoned Igris, the Knight of the Sacred Tree. "Igris, take care of my sister." Then he turned to the others. "Get the students to a safe place underground." The shadows answered his call. From the darkness, a legion of shadow soldiers emerged, kneeling before their master. "Escort the humans safely," he ordered. The enemy orcs watched in pure terror. They trembled at the very sight of the dark servants materializing. Sung shot them a killing glare. "I told you to stay exactly where you are." His voice was calm, but the command behind it was absolute. Kaisel obediently lowered himself, letting the students climb down safely using his wings. Grokter, staring at the surreal scene, finally understood. "So that's it, these immortal warriors are your servants?" His eyes narrowed, analyzing every detail with growing unease. Who are you? How do you speak our language? But Sung Jin Woo didn't answer. His presence was answer enough. Then, a dark, suffocating aura began to intensify around him. The energy flowing from him was thick, alive so dense it seemed to warp the very air. Grokter clenched his fists. He understood now, this man wouldn't speak with words. If he wanted answers, he'd have to rip them out of him. Attack! He roared. His warriors let out furious cries and charged straight at Jin Woo. The first orc raised his blade with blinding speed, aiming for a direct hit. But before the sword could land, Sung Jin Woo caught the orc's arm with a single hand. The creature felt its bones compressing as if caught in a vice. Jin Woo began crushing the orc's fingers one by one. Crack, crack, crack. The blade clattered to the floor. Then, in one swift motion, he slammed the orc into the ground. The impact shook the floor. Without hesitation, he stepped on the orc's head and crushed its skull without remorse. The remaining orcs, enraged, charged with their axes raised, but Jin Woo was ready. That's when he activated his ultimate skill Dominion's touch. With a subtle gesture, the two charging orcs were lifted into the air, helpless to resist. And before they could even scream, he smashed them into each other with brutal force. The impact echoed like thunder, but soon Jin Woo wasn't done. His rage was still growing, and Dominion had only just begun. The two orcs started slamming into each other again and again, their bodies smashing together with increasing force. Bones cracked like dry wood, their forms twisted and broke into a grotesque, indistinguishable mess. The power of the Shadow Monarch was something almost demonic. But even in the face of such terrifying power, the remaining monsters didn't hesitate. They kept charging forward, and without flinching, Sung Jin Woo advanced to meet them. No mercy, no hesitation. Every movement was calculated, every strike deadly. His fists, his blades, his presence, everything about him was the embodiment of death. Within seconds, the battlefield echoed with the sound of orc bodies being torn apart. When the massacre ended, Jin Woo stood alone at the center of the carnage. Piles of orc corpses surrounded him. The air was thick, saturated with the stench of blood. They'd all been annihilated. His eyes gleamed in the shadows. The fight wasn't over yet. One enemy still remained, Grokter. The orc leader was still standing, eyes wide in disbelief, struggling to comprehend what he had just witnessed. His entire army wiped out. The man standing before him wasn't just a hunter. And once again, Jin Woo activated Dominion's touch. Grokter felt his body lift against his will, hovering in midair like a puppet in the hands of something far greater. In an instant, Jin Woo grabbed him by the face. Before Grokter could react, he was violently hurled into the wall. The impact echoed like thunder as Grokter gasped for air. Jin Woo glanced around. His eyes locked onto the lifeless bodies of the students slaughtered by the orcs. Blood stained the ground, silence reigned. And then his voice sliced through the air like a blade. Why? He gripped the monster's face even tighter. Why do you want to kill humans so badly? Grokter, breathing raggedly, responded, his voice choked with desperation. There's a voice inside our heads. His voice trembled. All the time, it commands us, demands that we kill humans. He looked up, his pupils trembling. It's still here, right now. Jin Woo narrowed his eyes. You're hearing this voice. Even now, even with me here, Grokter swallowed hard. Please, forgive me. But Jin Woo remained stone-faced. I asked you a question. His aura exploded. The dark energy surrounding him pulsed alive and menacing. Grokter cowered under the pressure. Yes. The orc confessed, tears streaming down his face. It's still talking, still commanding me. Jin Woo said nothing for a moment, then, calmly, he summoned his shadow dagger. Just as I thought, his eyes were cold as ice. In your head. I'm not human, am I? Grokter didn't answer, but you know what? That doesn't bother me. Jin Woo twirled the dagger between his fingers. I'll forgive you, he stepped forward. But don't think you'll walk away unscathed. Before the orc could say another word, the blade cut through the air, fast, precise, final. The battle was over. Meanwhile, in the ranked dungeon, chaos was running wild. Jung Yirin, the team's healer, was struggling to drag a zombie corpse away, while one of the shadow ants was ferociously devouring it. "Hey, let go! That body's still worth a lot of money!" she snapped, clearly annoyed. But the ant didn't react, or rather, it outright ignored her. Yirin rolled her eyes, irritated, and pointed toward a group of fallen vampires in the corner. "If you're that hungry, why not go for those?" Probably juicier anyway, but the creature responded in an unexpected way. It spun around and drove its claw deep into the healer's shoulder. Yirin screamed in pain. The ant let out a savage, threatening roar. Its message was clear. It didn't take orders. That's when Beru appeared. His stern gaze fell upon the rogue ant, and with nothing but his presence, the creature recoiled, overtaken by a primal, instinctive fear. With a calm gesture, Beru stepped toward Jung Yirin and placed his hand gently over the wound on her shoulder. A dark energy enveloped the injury, dense, alive, and pulsing. In an instant, the wound vanished completely. Yirin stared at the spot where the injury had been, utterly stunned. But how? She looked at Beru, unable to believe what she was seeing. How can a summon have healing magic stronger than mine? Before she could get an answer, a deep, echoing sound rumbled through the dungeon walls. The giant boss gate began to open. The next battle was about to begin. From the shadows beyond the gate, a sinister presence emerged. A colossal necromancer, skeletal in form, raised his withered hands. With a simple motion, dozens of undead began to rise around him. Each of his fingers moved like a puppeteer's controlling death itself. The hunters froze, a heavy silence swallowing them whole. The boss of the dungeon. One of them muttered, "It's an arch-lich." Floating arrogantly at the center of the room, the creature was surrounded by 10 Death Knights, its loyal guards. Among all legendary bosses, Arch-liches held a special place in collective terror. All because of one tragic event, the Huangyang Guild Annihilation Incident. One of China's greatest guilds completely obliterated by a single Arch-lich. That disaster almost triggered a dungeon break of catastrophic scale. If not for the intervention of Liu Zhigang, a national-level hunter, the chaos would have spread across the continent. And now, another Arch-lich stood before them. Park Jong-soo felt a chill crawl down his spine. "We don't stand a chance." His voice was barely audible. "Not with a team of A and B ranks," he added. Yoon Tae-sik stepped closer, anxious. "So what do we do?" The situation was spiraling fast. Zombies they had just defeated began rising again. Because the shadow ants hadn't devoured all the bodies, the intact corpses were coming back to life. Now the hunters were surrounded from both sides. "Seal the entrance," Jong-soo shouted. Jung Yirin reacted instantly. Holy shield! A barrier of light appeared, momentarily blocking the horde of undead. It'll only last 5 minutes. She warned. Jong-soo clenched his fists. Without Sung Jin Woo, this fight was beyond them. Then it happened. The air tightened. A colossal presence filled the chamber, dark, unrestrained, suffocating. Every hunter felt the pressure at once. Even the Arch-lich froze, its lifeless eyes widening, and then Beru advanced. The Elite Shadow walked forward calmly, but his very presence dominated everything around him. His unwavering gaze locked onto the Necromancer. The Arch-lich instantly recognized the source of that power. You're from the Shadow Army." Its voice was laced with disbelief. "Why? Why is the Sovereign's army attacking us?" Beru smiled a cold, merciless smile. "We were chosen by our Sovereign." He tilted his head slightly. "You weren't." The Arch-lich hesitated, its mind racing in panic. This can't be. I must warn the monarch." But there was no time. Beru vanished for a heartbeat and reappeared right in front of him. His arm pierced through the Arch-lich's chest like paper. The creature trembled. Beru leaned in and whispered with his inhuman voice, "You talk too much." For someone about to die, and with a sharp motion, he annihilated the arch lich. Thanks for watching until the end, and see you in the next video.